Well, hello, and welcome to an interview with a very special person in the Triple Tree Aerodrome. So 2020 has been a rather unusual year, one where we've had to stay at home and do forced isolation for quite a bit of time. And if you're like me, you've probably have been itching to get out somewhere and fly somewhere in your airplane. So I've found that an interesting place that we can go to beginning in 2021 again is Triple Tree Aerodrome in Woodruff, South Carolina. Joining me today for the interview is Rob Williams, the executive director of the Triple Tree Aerodrome. It's located in Woodruff, South Carolina. Many of you have probably been there, and if you haven't been there, put it on your list of places to go to in 2021 when they open up and have many events again. You'll find it on your ForeFlight as SC Sierra Charlie 00. It's a private airport covering some 400 acres. And here to tell us more about Triple Tree Aerodrome is Rob Williams. Rob, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Ron. I appreciate it.
So what can you tell us about Triple Tree Aerodrome for those of us that haven't been there, or for those that have been there, to remind them again what you have?
Sure. All right. Well, as you mentioned, 2020 has been a challenging year for all of us. We've been forced to cancel all of our revenue-producing scheduled events. That includes the Triple Tree Fly-In, Joe Knoll in the fall. As far as Triple Tree goes, it's one of the fastest growing general aviation airport events out there. So we have 400 acres, and all the way on our southern side, if you see runway 3 I'm here at right now, that's the Enoree River, and all the way up over 7,000 feet to the beginning of runway 21. So our property is 400 acres, and we have a 7,000 foot grass strip out here in the middle of God's country in the upstate of South Carolina. So it started out about 40 years ago at Pat Hartness's house in Greenville. So he hosted some smaller radio control events there with airplanes, invited his buddies over, and it quickly got to be a pretty popular place for everyone to be. And his neighbors said, "You don't need to find another place to have your fly-ins at." So Pat had a search party go out and look for a 1,000 square foot tract of land out there, and wasn't able to find it, but Mike Gregory and a team of volunteers managed to find this piece of land out here, and they came up on it. It's a great story. It's on our YouTube, on our Facebook, and they saw it and they go, "This is it. This is it. This is what it's going to be." And they got so excited. They called Pat up, and he was in Jackson Hole, Wyoming, and he took the next flight out and flew back, and within 2 days sealed the deal to purchase the land. So this was Pat's personal land for a while, and him and a team of volunteers structured into what you see today. And actually, we have another historic event. So 10 years ago, he gave all of this land that you see to a 501c3 nonprofit, the Triple Tree Aerodrome. So we're in the middle of celebrating our 10th year anniversary as a 501c3 nonprofit. So we have hosted a little bit of a fundraiser. It's been a great success, asking people to donate a symbolic $10 for 10 years. So we can do with 2019 as far as our events go as a backdrop. We had about 30,000 people on our property. We had visitors from 49 states, 17 foreign countries come out here into the upstate of South Carolina, into tiny Woodruff. Joe Knoll is probably one of the biggest events, or general aviation population will recognize that name from the Knoll Report. So Joe and Pat were friends going through school. Joe worked for the NTSB and actually was the narrator of the first fly-ins out at the Hartness field. After he passed away in the early 80s, they renamed the fly-in the Joe Knoll fly-in. And so it's grown by leaps and bounds from there. I mean, it's absolutely amazing. When I'm here, I have people that will fly in from Asia, from Germany. They'll drive 20 hours from Arizona. And I got people right down the road that come. So it's a pretty cool event to see that out here. They're for a week, and they're flying 24 hours a day. They're radio control airplanes. And building on that popularity, we had another radio control event in the fall called Knoll in the Fall. And then we have 2 of our general aviation events. You may have heard of the Young Aviators Fly-In, which is a really cool event. It was the only one of its kind that I know of that is run solely by our Young Aviators Council. So Caleb McLeod and Ryan Hunt came up with this idea about 3 years ago, and it was a way to give back to our future aviators out there. So it's an entirely free event. This is the only event we host that's open to the public. So from there, we expanded and we selected 8 young men and women from across the nation to be part of this council and advise us on what to do and how to run the event and what the young people wanted to see at their event. Okay. And our largest general aviation event is the Triple Tree Fly-In. So that's traditionally held the last weekend in September. We have about 500 to 600 aircraft that come for that week-long event. And when we tell people it's a fly-in, an event like no other, it truly is a fly-in, an event like no other. We don't have a bunch of vendors. You won't see any sponsors, banners. What you will see is a bunch of people enjoying themselves, sitting back, relaxing, talking to each other, enjoying what we call our fun fellowship and hospitality. On top of that, we have a really unique collection of aircraft out here. So some of our aircraft we have a Spartan Executive, which is Pat's personal airplane, which is just a beautiful, immaculate airplane. We have 2 Stearmans out here, AirCam, a J3 Cub, a BT-13. We've got a Golden Chief aircraft, which is pretty unique in itself. And then our pride and joy is our P-51. It's actually a trainer aircraft, and we can fit 2 people in that. So just really amazing to see that aircraft take off from this grass strip runway. And I'll tell you another cool thing too. With our beautiful fleet of aircraft, we've got trained AMPs that come out here, and they supervise the work that are all being done on them.
Well, Rob, for those who have been there before, you gave them a good rundown and for their memory as to what they saw at Triple Tree. For those of us like me who haven't been there yet, it really whetted my appetite, and I'm sure other people's as well. So we'll be looking forward to opportunities to come to Triple Tree in 2021 when you have events. But you also mentioned earlier that there are some limited events, camping events that you're hosting this year. Tell us about what is happening there.
Sure, yeah, absolutely. So we've had a lot of requests to come in and camp at Triple Tree, and we are a events-driven airport. We host scheduled events out here. We don't have the manpower to have people in all the time. However, we've managed to coordinate with state and local officials to be able to open up Triple Tree as a campground with limited campsite availability coming up here in September. And that's a donation for either dry camping or full hookup camping. We've got different options, whether you're general aviation or if you're radio control. I'll speak to the general aviation side of things. So the September 14th through the 20th, that's a Monday through Sunday, is our first one that's open up to, I call them individual campers. And then if you have a larger group, the week after that, I can have people out here for a larger group events. But we're real excited about trying this out. It's going to be a lot different for us just with what's happening with COVID, having to keep social distancing, not have the meals that we always have set up, but still give our people a way to come and enjoy Triple Tree and escape for a little bit and unplug from the world around them.
Well, very good. So that's an innovative way of dealing with social distancing and the stay-at-home issue with COVID-19. I'm glad you're able to do that, and I'm certain that there'll be a large number of people that will take advantage of that and come to Triple Tree for the individual campings or the group campings in September. So if I heard you correctly, the tickets are actually a donation. The ticket fee is actually a donation to a 501c3 corporation?
That's correct. It's a ticket fee. It's a donation, and so that's how we're coming in. So as mentioned here, we didn't have any of our scheduled events come in, so we've had to rely on a lot of our philanthropic spirit. So I've never been involved in a place where they have so much people who contribute financially and also with their time and effort here.
What about those of us who may be RC, radio-controlled enthusiasts? What is there for folks with radio-controlled airplanes to do?
Starting in late September on into middle of October, we're having the same opportunities there as well. So we're having a week for individuals and a week for larger group events too. Now, the cool thing, I'll mention a few little RC projects that we have going on here. For those of your audience who hasn't been out here for the RC events, we have about many different disciplines on our facility. We have the classic line, the electric, the float line, 3D, where the airplanes do unnatural things where they're on all 3 dimensions. And it's a pretty cool thing to be out there and be a part of it.
So it's exciting times coming up in September at Triple Tree if you're a pilot of a general aviation aircraft or if you're an RC pilot. In either case, you've got things to do. Well, Rob, I know you've got some education opportunities there for young people in particular. Tell us about the Aviation Centered Education, or ACE as you call it.
That's correct. Yes, sir. So as a nonprofit, not only do we have our beautiful facility to take care of out here, but we also give back to our community through our ACE portfolio. What that portfolio comprises of is 8 different individual programs inside of it, all the way from kindergarten all the way up to your most experienced, or I'll call it ACE experienced. Actually, on August 3rd, we started our very first virtual ground school for our ACE RC, or radio control program. That was a partnership we did with Google Classrooms. We had an application where we asked for young men and women to do an application and an interview. And we're going to kind of do it a little bit like a 121 ground school and get the ground school, if you will, out of the way first. And if everything is cleared up with the current pandemic situation, we're going to invite them out to Triple Tree for in-person flying lessons. And the goal with that is to be able to solo their very first RC aircraft by themselves. Then we're going to present them with a radio control aircraft at the end. It was part of a partnership and a grant from the South Carolina Aeronautics Association. Now, this is open to students ages 12 to 17, which really will give them a leg up as they carry on with their flying career, whether it's to continue on with RC, become an airframe and power plant mechanic, an engineer, or a general aviation pilot. They already have the handle of basic aerodynamics, what different flight controls are, aeronautical decision making when they get there. So it's really a cool thing to be able to watch this progress. And as I mentioned, that's one of our, if you will, more introductory levels, and we go all the way up to ACE Experienced. And Experienced is a great partnership we've developed with AOPA and their Rusty Pilots program that they have. I can't say enough great things about that for somebody like myself that had been in the 121 world for years and didn't really have to ask permission to go into Class Bravo or do a flight plan or any of the rest of that stuff. For us to say, all right, I'm going to transition back here now to where I have to ask permission. I have to learn how to fly a flight plan, and even in odd altitudes. So we've done it once. It was a huge success. I'm a very big proponent of the safety aspect of that because sometimes not all pilots, I'll just use myself as an example, can be a little headstrong and say, I can fly that. Don't worry about it. I'll figure it out. And that's not the safe attitude to take. And AOPA has seen that and recognized that, and they've managed to, if you will, help mitigate that risk.
Very good. Well, I certainly support the Rusty Pilots program. As I had mentioned to you in a previous conversation, I'm one of the contract instructors for AOPA, and I've been presenting Rusty Pilot programs a number of places throughout the eastern half of the U.S., and I would look forward to an invitation to come to Triple Tree. It'll be yet another good excuse for me to come there to enjoy your facilities. Well, Rob, you mentioned, I want to make sure that we cover volunteers because I know you rely a lot on volunteers for the upkeep and for the management of Triple Tree Aerodrome. Tell us a bit about the number of volunteers and who they are, where they come from, why do they do this?
Well, we have about, I'd consider them a core group that are in our local area of around 200 volunteers. And when we have an event, we'll have anywhere between 400 to 600 volunteers throughout the United States, and some even come in from Canada to help volunteer for us. But as far as the core group, you mentioned why do they do this? It's a love. It's a love like nothing I've ever seen, where they're out there either picking up rocks from when we've dug something up to make sure the mower blades don't get dinged, or I've got Ginger and Velma working the front gate as they come in from 7 in the morning to 7 at night. I've got, the Caps brothers out there helping out. I mean, these are people that are dedicated, and Triple Tree is not just another event to them, it's part of them. And so that's really, really amazing and humbling to be a part of that. So we've had some volunteer cookouts in the past where we all get together and talk about what's going on. And we're a big family, and it's a big decision-making process that goes into things because everyone has an ownership and a love of the place. And so why do they do it? I think it's a love, and I think it's an example of that Pat Hartness has set for everyone out there. I've seen people before we got done with our first Triple Tree flying, and I'm used to, big general aviation flying similar to Triple Tree, and it'll take a long time to clean up afterwards. There's a lot of people that come in, and Triple Tree Sunday, 2 o'clock, spotless. Nothing I've ever seen before like that. So part of that, I believe, is attributed to the example that Pat has set forth and instilled in all our volunteers, and those volunteers instill that in new guests when they come. So the place is spotless and pristine, and you take care of a place you love. And so I have to say,
Indeed you
it
do.
all boils down to love.
Yes, indeed. Well, it's good to know, Rob, that like AirVenture and like Sun and Fun, a lot of the effort is done by volunteers, and obviously that's the same. That the same is true at Triple Tree for your events there. So, well, that's great. Well, Rob, I want to thank you again for joining us today in this interview and telling us a lot more about Triple Tree than most of us have ever heard, and has certainly have whetted our appetite to come see you and participate in some of the events, perhaps as early as September of this year, 2020. And then certainly if the COVID-19 pandemic eases, we'll have a full schedule of events in 2021, and I look forward to it along with other folks to come up there. That's great. So thanks for joining us today in this interview. If you're longing for landing on a grass strip that is 7,000 feet long, Triple Tree is the place you want to go sometime in late 2020 or in 2021. Participate in some of the events. And if you're an RC pilot, it's also equally compelling for you to go there and to experience the fun and enjoyment and the fellowship that you will get by being part of the group at Triple Tree Airport. So thank you again for joining us. I'm Ron Timmermans, one of the many hosts for the Florida Aviation Network, bringing you this interview with Rob Williams, Executive Director of the Triple Tree Aerodrome in Woodruff, South Carolina. Thank you so much for joining us today.